Every chef watched the Mafia Boss's plate. The night baker made them leave first. Maeve Carver had delivered 12 rosemary loaves to the private room upstairs, and every one of them had gone cold while 6 men watched Enzo Marcelli fail to swallow. She stood in the doorway of Bell and Breyer's back kitchen with an empty bread crate against her hip and flour on one cheek. Exhaustion made politeness feel like an unnecessary garnish. It was 2:17 in the morning. The neighborhood bakery had closed at 10, the ovens had been cleaned at midnight, and Maeve had expected the rented dining room to be empty by 1. Instead, a silver plate sat beneath 3 pendant lamps as if someone had placed it on trial. Foie gras, glazed figs, pale puree, and a perfect red sauce line filled the plate. Around it stood a chef, physician, 2 bodyguards, Enzo's security chief, and a watchful family office woman. At the center sat Enzo Marcelli, wearing a black 3-piece suit beneath a long black overcoat. He had not removed it, although the bakery was warm enough to soften butter on the counter. Black leather gloves covered his hands, a heavy signet ring pressed against the right glove, and 2 more men waited beyond the frosted back door beside a black SUV. Nothing about him looked weak, which was probably why everyone had mistaken pressure for help. "1 bite," the physician said. "You do not have to finish it." Enzo looked at the plate. The chef leaned closer and said, "The texture is almost entirely smooth." Enzo's jaw moved once, though there was nothing in his mouth. The woman with the watch said, "Mr. Marcelli, we need to know whether the dinner on Thursday remains possible." Maeve set the crate down, and the small sound made 5 people turn. Enzo did not turn because his gaze remained fixed on the food while a pulse struck hard beneath his left jaw. "Out," Maeve said. The chef blinked before asking, "Excuse me? All of you? Out of my kitchen." The security chief stepped forward. He was tall, broad, and gray at the temples, with the patient expression of a man who had removed many inconvenient people from many expensive rooms. "Miss Carver," he said, "the room is rented until 3. The dining room is rented. The kitchen is mine. We are conducting a private medical meal." "No," Maeve said. "You are conducting a public execution with cutlery." The woman with the watch stared at her. The chef looked offended on behalf of cutlery. Enzo finally raised his eyes, and Maeve felt the attention before she fully met it. He did not look like a man accustomed to being interrupted. Nor did he resemble someone who had ever been ordered out of a room he had paid for. His face was hard, controlled, and tired in a way no tailored suit could hide. Dark hair swept back from his forehead, a thin white scar crossed one eyebrow, and his stillness carried more threat than another man's raised voice. "Who are you?" he asked. "The woman whose bread your people ordered and forgot to serve." His gaze moved to the empty crate, then back to her. The chef recovered first and said, "Mr. Marcelli needs nutritionally controlled food." "Then control the food," Maeve said. "Stop controlling his throat." The room changed as the physician drew himself straighter and the bodyguards looked toward Enzo, waiting for permission to be offended. The security chief's hand lowered close to his jacket, not toward a visible weapon, but toward the habit of readiness. Maeve walked to the table, and nobody stopped her, which surprised the guards more than it surprised her. She lifted the silver plate and carried it to the pass. The sauce line remained perfect and the figs did not roll, although the private chef made a sound as though she had taken a small child by the ankle. "That cost $300, he said. "Then it should have learned manners." Maeve set the plate out of Enzo's sight. On the cooling rack beside the oven lay the last loaf from the night's bake. It had split slightly along one side because the steam vent had opened late, which meant it would not be sold in the morning display. The crust was dark gold, blistered in small places, and fragrant with rosemary, olive oil, and sea salt. Maeve tore off the heel, and the crust cracked beneath her fingers as warmth rose from the center. She broke the heel in half, put one piece on the bare wooden table in front of Enzo, and kept the other in her hand. Then she pointed toward the back door. "Everyone leaves his line of sight." The security chief did not move. "That is not possible." "Then he does not eat here." "Security requires visual contact." "Security can watch the doors. It does not need to watch his mouth." The physician stepped in. "Miss Carver, you do not understand the clinical circumstances. I understand 6 people are holding their breath every time he touches a fork. He has lost significant weight." "Then stop making every bite prove something." The chef folded his arms. "And your solution is stale bread?" Maeve looked at the warm half in her hand. "It came out of the oven 40 minutes ago. It is the heel." "Yes. The part people fight over when nobody is performing." She took a bite without looking at Enzo while she chewed, then turned toward the proofing cabinet and checked the temperature dial as if the most feared man in the harbor district were not sitting 3 feet behind her. The room remained frozen while Maeve swallowed, brushed one crumb from her thumb, and said, "He can eat it, leave it, or throw it away. But nobody gets to watch him decide." The security chief looked at Enzo. Enzo stared at Maeve's back. "Dario," he said. The gray-haired man waited. "Take them outside." "Enzo. You heard her." The private chef began to protest, but Dario Costa touched his elbow and guided him toward the door. The physician followed with visible reluctance. The family office woman gathered her tablet, whispered something about Thursday, and received no answer. The bodyguards backed away last, their eyes fixed on Maeve as if memorizing a problem. Dario stopped at the threshold and told Maeve, "The frosted door stays open 2 inches. 1 inch. 2. 1.5. He looked at Enzo. Enzo removed one glove and placed it beside the bread. 1.5. Dario left, and the door remained open the width of 2 fingers. Maeve continued checking the proofing cabinet, although it did not need checking. She simply understood that privacy sometimes required a witness who knew how not to become an audience. Behind her, leather whispered against wood as Enzo picked up the bread. She heard the faint crack of crust, then nothing. 10 seconds passed, then 20. Maeve examined a tray of morning buns. One had risen higher than the others, arrogant and slightly misshapen. She pressed it down with one finger. At 38 seconds, Enzo took his first bite. His throat did not move immediately. Maeve kept her eyes on the buns. He chewed once, stopped, and pressed his thumb against the edge of the table. The muscles in his neck tightened while his breathing became shallow enough that most people would not have noticed, but Maeve did. She reached above the counter and switched off the pendant lamp directly over him. The table fell into softer light, and Enzo's eyes lifted. "The light was loud," she said. "Light does not make sound." That one did. Something almost changed at the corner of his mouth. He looked down again and swallowed. No one applauded, wrote down the time, or asked whether he could do it again. Maeve tore another bite from her own half and walked to the sink. Water ran while metal bowls knocked together, and the ordinary noise of the bakery closed around him, neither silent nor attentive. He took a second bite, then a third. When Maeve turned back, the rosemary bread heel was gone. Enzo's bare hand rested on the table while crumbs lay against his palm. He looked at them as if they belonged to a language he had stopped believing he could speak. "Do you want more?" Maeve asked. His gaze sharpened. It was the first question anyone had asked him that night which did not contain its preferred answer. "No," he said. "All right." She wrapped the remaining loaf in brown paper and tied it with green baker's twine. She did not offer it to him. She set it on the counter beside the door where anyone leaving could choose to take it. Enzo put his glove back on and asked, "How much?" "For the bread?" "For the room." "The bread. Your time." "The room was prepaid. The bread was part of the order. My time became free when everyone refused to leave." He studied her. "You do not like being paid?" "I like being paid for work. I do not like being paid to make a boundary disappear." The frosted door opened wider. Dario looked in, saw Enzo sitting upright, and immediately looked toward the empty plate on the pass. "He ate?" the physician asked from the hall. Maeve shut the door in his face, not hard but firmly. Enzo watched her do it. "That man has treated 3 governors," he said. "Then he should know not to shout through a bakery door." He was not shouting. His eyebrows were. This time the change at Enzo's mouth became real. It was not quite a smile, but the memory of one. Maeve picked up the empty crate. "Your people can come back in now. You are dismissing me. I have 148 rolls to shape before sunrise." 148? 150 if Owen remembers he is paid to count instead of flirt with the espresso machine. Does the machine respond? More consistently than Owen. Enzo stood, taller than Maeve had expected. Most people became larger when they rose, but Enzo became more exact as his coat fell into clean black lines. The power everyone else had carried for him returned to his shoulders, as though it had only stepped outside for air. Maeve did not step back. His gaze moved to the paper-wrapped loaf by the door. "Is that mine?" "It belongs to whoever takes it." "And if I do not?" "Owen will eat it over the sink and lie about the crumbs." Enzo picked up the loaf. The green twine looked almost absurd beneath his black glove. "Good night, Miss Carver. You still have not told me how you know my name." He looked at the rental agreement clipped beside the door. Maeve glanced at it. Her signature sat at the bottom in thick blue ink. "That is disappointing," she said. I thought you were mysterious. I delegated mystery years ago. He left with the bread under one arm, and Dario entered first, followed by the physician, chef, woman with the watch, and 2 guards who crowded around the empty chair. How much did he eat? The physician asked. Maeve lifted the silver plate from the pass and put it into the chef's hands. None of that. The bread, he said impatiently. Enough. I need an amount. You need to ask him. The woman checked her watch again. Mr. Marcelli does not discuss these things. Maeve looked through the back window. Enzo stood beside the SUV while Dario spoke to him. The brown paper loaf remained tucked beneath one black arm. Maybe that is because none of you know how to stop watching long enough for him to answer. She opened the kitchen door wide. Rental ended at 3. It is 2:41. You have 19 minutes to remove the silverware before I put it in the alley. They left in 14. At 6:30, Belle and Briar opened for breakfast, although Maeve had not slept. Before opening, she had shaped the rolls, glazed the morning buns, argued with the sourdough starter, and corrected Owen's count. Then she spent 12 minutes on an overturned flour bucket while her knees informed her she was no longer 25. The first customers came in wearing work boots and hospital scrubs. A bus driver bought 2 sesame rolls and 1 coffee. Mrs. Donnelly from the laundromat complained that the cinnamon buns had become smaller, though they had not. 3 dockworkers split a loaf before their shift and left crumbs across the front table. Ordinary people ate without witnesses. At 7:12, a black sedan parked across the street. Maeve saw it through the display window and kept arranging croissants. Dario Costa entered alone. He had removed his overcoat, but the suit remained dark enough to make the bakery's yellow walls look brighter around him. Customers glanced up, decided their coffee deserved full attention, and looked down again. Maeve slid a tray into the case. If you are here to rent the room, the answer is no. I am here to offer you employment. The answer is still no. You have not heard the terms. Private household. Exclusive service. Large number designed to make me forget I own half this bakery. Dario's expression barely shifted. You own 60%. Maeve stopped. You checked. I check everyone who closes a door in Enzo Marcelli's face. Then you know I cannot leave Owen with 60% of the work and 40% of the judgment. From the espresso machine, Owen called, I heard that. Count the almond twists. There are 24. There are 23. Owen looked down, counted again, and became quiet. Dario placed a cream envelope on the counter. Maeve did not touch it. Mr. Marcelli would like you to prepare 1 evening meal per day, he said. Location and schedule can be arranged around the bakery. Compensation is listed. No. You helped him. I removed an audience. He has not eaten bread in 11 weeks. The number found a tender place in Maeve, but she did not let Dario see it settle. Then I am glad he ate. He ate another piece in the car. Maeve's hand paused over the pastry tongs. Dario noticed. He sent the rest back to the house, he continued. Then he dismissed the chef. That was unnecessary. The chef made the mistake of calling the bread nutritionally insignificant. It was bread, not a coup. In that house, the distinction has become unstable. Maeve pushed the envelope back toward him. He does not need to own the room where he felt safe. Dario's eyes narrowed slightly. Nobody said own. Exclusive service means my hands, my time, and my food disappear behind his walls. That is ownership with payroll. You assume he wants you hidden. I assume powerful men are used to moving what they need closer. Enzo does not need many things. That does not make his needing them my responsibility. Dario looked past her at the front room. Mrs. Donnelly was tearing a cinnamon bun into pieces with the focus of a jeweler. 2 nurses shared coffee near the window. Owen had begun counting almond twists for the 3rd time. He will not like this answer, Dario said. Then he can dislike it without supervision. Dario took the envelope. Before he left, Maeve wrapped 1 rosemary heel in brown paper and placed it on the counter. She told herself it was yesterday's unsold bread and would otherwise become croutons. Dario looked at it. That is not employment, she said. It is breakfast. For him. For whoever takes it. Dario almost smiled. He took it. Enzo returned that night at 1:43, but he did not rent the room. He came through the front door after closing, wearing the same black coat and gloves, with Dario 2 paces behind him and 1 guard remaining beside the SUV. Maeve was scraping dried dough from the work table after Owen had gone home, while rain ticked against the glass. Enzo stopped just inside the bakery. Are you open? He asked. No. May commine. Maeve rested the scraper against the table. Dario looked at him. Perhaps Enzo Marcelli had never asked a locked business whether he could enter. You are already inside, Maeve said. I can step back out and improve the sequence. She considered him. Stay. Dario moved toward the nearest table. Maeve pointed at the front door. You stay outside. His face hardened. No. Enzo looked at Maeve. The front window gives him visual access. To your shoulders. That is sufficient. Dario looked between them, unhappy with every available option. One table from the door, he said. Outside, Maeve replied. Maeve. It was the first time Enzo used her given name. He said it quietly, without entitlement, but the sound changed the room anyway. Dario protected me before I had men to protect, he continued. He will remain where he can reach the door. Maeve looked at Dario. Back table. Face the window. No turning around. Dario removed his coat and sat with his back to Enzo. It was not privacy, but an accommodation built from the materials available. Maeve washed her hands, dried them, and lifted the cloth covering a tray of test rolls. Rosemary and lemon rose into the warm air. These are tomorrow's batch, she said. The salt is wrong. Enzo sat at the wooden table from the previous night. Too much? Too little. Most people would consider that healthier. Most people are not bred. She tore off a heel and set it on a plain cream plate. Enzo looked at the plate, then at her. No silver, he asked. We save silver for people who enjoy polishing it. His gloved hand remained on the table. Maeve took the chair opposite him, tore the heel in two, and placed one half near his hand. She ate first. He watched her chew. That is still watching, she said. You seem able to tolerate it. I am not the one whose throat has 6 employees. His gaze dropped. Maeve regretted the sharpness, though not the truth behind it. Do you want me to leave? She asked. No. Do you want me to talk? He considered. Yes. About what? Anything that does not involve food. Maeve leaned back. Owen believes the espresso machine is emotionally attached to him. Enzo picked up the bread. Is it? It spits steam whenever he gets too close. That may be self-defense. Mrs. Donnelly has accused us of shrinking the cinnamon buns for 4 consecutive years. Have you? No. She is getting taller. Enzo took a bite. His throat tightened, but less than the night before. Maeve told him about the pigeon that had learned to wait outside the flour delivery door. She told him how the sourdough starter had survived a power outage, a burst pipe, Owen's attempt to feed it pineapple juice, and Maeve's mother throwing it away by mistake. She told him that bakers could identify one another in public by the small burns on their forearms and the permanent suspicion that everyone else was underproofing. Enzo finished half the bread. He stopped there. Maeve did not ask why. He placed the rest on the plate. Your envelope was returned, he said. Yes. The offer was generous. It was. You did not open it. No. Why? Because a larger number would not change the answer, and a smaller one would insult both of us. His fingers moved once over the table. Dario said you accused me of wanting to own the room. I accused powerful men in general. A diplomatic distinction. I own a bakery. I have to be diplomatic with flour inspectors and women who order naked cakes. What is a naked cake? Proof that frosting has become ashamed of success. His almost smile returned. Maeve folded her arms on the table. Why did you come back? The question reached him differently from the others. He looked toward the front window, where Dario's reflection remained facing the street. Because I ate the bread in the car, he said. Dario told me. Dario talks too much. He used 14 words. For him, that is a confession. Enzo looked at the half piece on his plate. I wanted to know whether last night happened because I was exhausted. And I am still deciding. Nobody is timing you. I know. He said it with something like wonder and something like anger. Maeve understood both. Over the next week, he came back 4 times. He never arrived at the same hour, but he always asked through the locked door before Dario took the front table facing the glass. Maeve cut the pendant light above Enzo's chair and gave him no menu, no measurements, and no report of what he finished. Sometimes he ate the rosemary heel, and sometimes he touched it and left it. Once he tore it into 6 pieces, stared at them for 20 minutes, and put every piece into the brown paper when he left. Maeve did not call that failure. On the 5th night, Enzo brought the paper bag back. The 6 pieces were still inside, hard now, carrying the faint smell of rosemary. Croutons, Maeve said. I thought you would throw them away. Bread has several lives before surrender. She cut the pieces smaller, tossed them with oil, and slid them into the oven. Enzo stood beside the work table without his overcoat. He wore a black waistcoat over a white shirt, sleeves still buttoned at the wrist. His gloves rested near the flour bin. Your mother taught you that? He asked. She taught me waste was a sin. Bread taught me the rest. Is she alive? No. He did not say he was sorry immediately, which Maeve appreciated. How long? He asked. 9 years. You still speak of her in the present tense. So do you. Enzo became still. Maeve had heard enough from Dario's silences and the neighborhood stories to know Enzo's father was dead. Antonio Marcelli had ruled the waterfront with contracts, favors, and the kind of violence people discussed only after checking the door. My father is not the same, Enzo said. I hope not. My mother threatened people with wooden spoons. My father preferred chairs. Maeve looked at him. His expression had not changed, but the line contained no joke. The croutons browned in the oven. She lowered her voice. Was the table his? Every table was his. Maeve waited. Enzo's bare hand rested against the flour-dusted wood. When I was 13, I choked at dinner, he said. Not badly. A piece of meat went down wrong. My father made everyone remain seated until I swallowed another piece. Maeve felt anger move through her with the clean heat of an opened oven. He called it correction, Enzo continued. My brothers watched. Dario watched. My mother tried to stop it, and he sent her from the room. How long? 40 minutes. Maeve closed the oven door. And now everybody watches because they think they are protecting you. Now they watch because I stopped eating after my father's memorial dinner. What happened? The room looked the same. He said nothing more. Maeve did not force the memory into details. The timer rang. She removed the tray, and rosemary-scented heat rushed between them. Enzo stepped closer, then stopped before entering her reach. May I? He asked. Maeve handed him one warm crouton. He ate it standing at the work table. Dario did not turn from the window. Maeve pretended to inspect the rest, though her chest had tightened. Enzo swallowed. Too much salt, he said. Now you are becoming useful. He ate another. That was the first irreversible thing between them. Not that he ate. That he criticized the bread. People praised what frightened them. They called every offering perfect because honesty felt dangerous. Enzo told Maeve the croutons had too much salt, and she heard trust inside the complaint. The following night, Maeve burned a tray of rolls because Enzo Marcelli laughed. It happened at 2:12 when Owen, who had stayed late to repair the mixer, asked whether Dario wanted an apron. Dario said no, Owen said black would suit him, and Dario replied that he already wore black. Owen held up a flower-striped apron and said, "This has pockets." Enzo laughed once, and Maeve looked over. It was not the low, controlled sound he sometimes used when she teased him, but something real and brief and unexpected enough that she forgot the oven for 30 seconds until smoke rose. Your fault, she told him while carrying the tray to the sink. I was sitting quietly. Aggressively. I have been accused of worse. Not by someone holding a hot sheet pan. He took the pan from her before she could object, using a folded towel to protect his hands. The action brought him close enough that Maeve caught the scent of rain, clean wool, and rosemary that had somehow entered the fabric of his coat over the past week. His eyes dropped to her wrist. A pale burn crossed it, old and smooth. Your mother? He asked. Oven rack. I was 20. Does it hurt? Only when men ask too many questions. He released the pan. Then I will conserve them. Maeve looked at his hand near hers. He did not touch her. She had met men who performed restraint because they wanted applause for not taking. Enzo's restraint looked different. It cost him attention. His body leaned toward action, then stayed where she had left it. Maeve wanted to touch him. That annoyed her. She handed him another towel instead. Wipe the flour off the table. Dario turned from the window. Enzo looked at Maeve. You are asking me to clean? No. I am giving you the privilege of correcting the mess your elbow made. His gaze moved to the flour mark on his black sleeve, then to the white streak across the table. He wiped it, and Dario faced the window again, but not before Maeve saw his mouth tighten against a smile. At the end of the second week, Bell and Breyer's annual harbor breakfast became a problem. The breakfast had existed for 12 years, beginning after a winter storm closed the docks and left half the neighborhood without a day's wages. Maeve's mother opened the bakery at 5, local businesses donated eggs and coffee, and anyone who needed breakfast ate without answering questions. Over time, the event grew. A church sent volunteers. A grocery store donated fruit. The Marcelli Foundation paid for the room and never placed its name on the napkins, which was one reason Maeve had accepted the donation. This year, Celeste Barron took charge of foundation publicity. She arrived at Bell and Breyer in a cream suit with a photographer, 2 assistants, and a smile that made Maeve think of glaze before it set. Mr. Marcelli will attend, Celeste announced. Maeve looked up from a tray of rosemary rolls. Did he say that? He approved the calendar. That is not what I asked. Celeste placed a printed schedule on the counter. He will arrive at 7:15, greet the volunteers, sit at the sponsor table, and take breakfast with neighborhood families. Maeve read the schedule. At 7:22, it said. Enzo Marcelli first bite photo. Maeve folded the paper once. No. Celeste's smile remained. The foundation needs a human image. Then photograph a human doing something he agreed to do. He agreed to attend. Did he agree to have his mouth photographed? The photographer looked down at his camera. Celeste lowered her voice. You have been given unusual access to Mr. Marcelli. He buys bread. He has eaten here. Maeve set the folded schedule on the counter. People eat in bakeries. Not him. The 2 words carried the entire problem. Celeste stepped closer. There are rumors about his health. His absence from public meals has affected confidence in several foundation partnerships. One normal photograph ends the speculation. At the price of turning his breakfast into a test. He is not an ordinary man. His throat is. Celeste's face cooled. This event receives significant foundation support. And it will continue to receive our bread whether your name appears or not. That is not what I meant. I know. Maeve slid the schedule back. No first bite photograph. No camera pointed at a plate. No line of people waiting for him to swallow. You do not set Mr. Marcelli's security protocol. I set the bakery rules. The event will be crowded. Then your photographer can take wide shots of people eating together. Celeste collected the paper. I will discuss this with him. Please do. That night, Enzo did not come. Nor the next. Maeve told herself the absence was useful. She slept 4 uninterrupted hours, corrected inventory, and stopped burning rolls whenever the front lock clicked. On the 3rd night, rain struck the windows after midnight. Maeve finished shaping dough and found Enzo standing beneath the bakery awning. He had not knocked. He watched the rain instead, hands in his coat pockets, while Dario waited beside the SUV. Maeve unlocked the door. Are you going to stand there until breakfast? Enzo looked at her. I was deciding whether to come in. That process usually happens before crossing the street. Dario said the awning was neutral territory. Dario, from the curb, showed no sign of having said anything. Maeve opened the door wider. Enzo entered. This time he removed his overcoat without being asked. He hung it on the chair near the door, placed his gloves on top, and waited beside the wooden table. Maeve brought the rosemary loaf. She did not tear it. You do it, she said. Enzo placed both hands on the crust. His fingers were large, the knuckles marked by old pale lines. He broke the heel free, and the loaf released a ribbon of steam. He divided it unevenly. The larger piece remained near Maeve. She looked at it, then at him. Poor measurement. Deliberate allocation. That sounds like foundation language. Celeste spoke to me. Maeve took the larger half. And? The first bite photograph has been removed. Good. She replaced it with a toast. No. I also said no. Maeve stopped. Enzo sat, but he did not reach for his bread. Why did you miss 2 nights? She asked. I was angry. At me? At the fact that you were right before I knew what had been requested. That sounds inconvenient. You use that word often. Powerful men are rarely introduced to it early enough. Rain tapped against the window. Dario's silhouette remained beyond the glass, turned toward the street. Enzo looked at the bread, then at Maeve. Do you want company, he asked, or do you want me to leave you your own table? The question entered quietly. It still changed everything. Maeve thought of all the ways he could have phrased it. May I stay would have centered his wish. Do you want me here would have demanded reassurance. His question gave both choices equal weight and accepted that her answer might cost him the room. She pulled out the chair opposite her. I want company. Enzo sat. For several minutes, neither of them ate. Maeve listened to rain and the refrigerator motor. Enzo watched the dark window instead of the plate. My mother used to make me sit at the kitchen table after she became ill, Maeve said. He turned his head. She had a stroke. Small, they said, as if size made the fear polite. Her left hand recovered first. Swallowing took longer. Enzo remained silent. Every therapist told her what to do, Maeve continued. Chin down. Smaller bite. Again. Again. Everyone watched. She began hiding food in napkins because it was the only decision she could still make. What did you do? At first, I watched harder. The admission had waited years for a room quiet enough to hold it. I counted bites. I praised her. I begged. I made every meal about my fear of losing her. Maeve turned the bread in her fingers. One day she threw a spoon at me. Did it hit you? Of course. She had excellent aim with her right hand. Enzo's mouth moved. She told me to bring bread and leave the room, Maeve said. So I did. When I came back, she had eaten half the heel. Enzo looked at the piece between his hands. Did she recover? Enough. She ran this bakery for another 4 years and insulted customers until the end. Then the bread worked. No. Maeve's voice sharpened. The bread did not cure her. Privacy did not cure her. Choice did not cure her. They only gave her back one part of the meal that belonged to her. Enzo nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? You are not trying to make me eat. No. You are trying to keep everyone else from making the decision mine only after they approve it. Maeve looked at him. Yes. He took a bite. His throat tightened. Maeve looked away, not theatrically, simply turning to check the rain against the glass. He swallowed. When she looked back, his eyes were on her. May I ask you something? He said. You have just done so. May I ask another? Careful. You are becoming civilized. Why did you let me return? Maeve considered several safer answers. Because he paid for bread. Because Dario looked less worried. Because she understood the problem. None were entirely false. Because you asked at the door, she said. The honesty moved through him. That is all? It was not a small thing for you. You knew that. I know what effort looks like when it is trying not to ask for applause. Enzo put his bread down. His bare hand rested between them, palm angled toward the table. Maeve's hand lay 6 inches away. He did not close the distance. Maeve, he said, I have wanted to touch you for 9 nights. Heat climbed from her collar to her face. She hated that he saw it and loved that he did not pretend otherwise. You count nights? Dario does. From outside, Dario lifted one hand without turning around. Maeve laughed. Enzo watched the laugh as if it were something rarer than fear. You may touch my hand, she said. He waited 1 heartbeat after permission. Then his fingers covered hers. His hand was warm, calloused in places the suit did not explain, and more careful than she had expected. He did not pull her closer. He did not turn her palm upward. He simply rested his hand over hers while rain softened the city outside. Maeve's thumb moved once against the side of his finger. Enzo inhaled. That small reaction gave her more power than his guards, his cars, or the signet ring on the table between them. She could have mistaken it for surrender. It was not. It was trust under pressure, which was harder and more valuable. They stayed that way until the oven timer rang. Maeve withdrew first. Enzo let her. They did not turn the next night into a victory lap. Enzo arrived after midnight and chose the front table instead of the protected one in the kitchen. The bakery was closed, but the flour delivery was late, which meant a driver named Frank would eventually enter through the side door with 20 sacks and an opinion about where each one belonged. Dario warned Enzo twice that they could postpone the attempt. Maeve did not call it an attempt at all. You are sitting at a table, she said. People do it every day without earning a certificate. Enzo looked toward the delivery entrance. Most people are not photographed when they fail. Then we do not call leaving food a failure. You make rules quickly. I make bread quickly. Rules take longer. Maeve brought him a cream plate, but she left it empty until he asked for the rosemary heel. That detail mattered to both of them because he did not have to accept what appeared in front of him, and she did not have to guess what kindness looked like. When Frank arrived, the side door banged against the stopper and winter air rolled through the bakery. He carried the first flour sack over one shoulder, saw Enzo Marcelli at the front table, and nearly walked into the cooling rack. Evening, Maeve said. Flour goes beside the west bin. Right, Frank answered as he shifted the sack. Of course. Enzo's fingers closed around the untouched bread. His shoulders did not move, but Maeve saw the old pressure gather beneath his collar. She could have sent Frank outside, blocked Enzo with her body, turned off the lights, or taken the plate. Every option would have protected him from the moment, and every option would also have made the decision for him. Maeve stopped beside the table, leaving enough distance that he could breathe. "Do you want the back room?" she asked, "or do you want him to finish the delivery?" Frank froze with the flour sack still on his shoulder. Enzo looked at him, then at Maeve. "Finish the delivery." "All right." Maeve returned to the work table and began weighing dough. Frank carried the remaining sacks inside, moving with exaggerated care until Maeve told him the flour was not sleeping, while Dario remained by the front door and watched the street rather than Enzo's plate. The first bite took 4 minutes, but the second took less than 1. By the time Frank closed the side door, half the rosemary heel was gone. Enzo wrapped the rest in brown paper himself, and Maeve noticed that he did not hide it inside his coat. "You are not going to congratulate me," he said. "Would you like congratulations?" "No." "Then I have once again demonstrated excellent judgment." His expression warmed, but his eyes remained serious. "Everyone else reports progress." "To whom?" "Dario. My physician. The family office." "And what does progress mean?" "Wait. Meals completed. Public appearances tolerated." Maeve folded a clean cloth over a bowl of rising dough. "Those are measurements. They are not always progress." "What would you measure?" "Whether you chose the table, whether you asked for the bread, and whether you knew you could leave but stayed because you wanted to." Enzo looked toward the side door Frank had used. "Then tonight counts. Only if you want it to." He unfolded the brown paper and ate one more bite. 2 nights later, he chose the front table again while Owen cleaned the espresso machine and complained about a leaking valve. Enzo did not eat much, but he stayed through the noise. The following evening, Maeve sat beside him rather than opposite, close enough for their shoulders to nearly touch while both faced the empty bakery. He asked before moving his chair, and she said yes. That quiet change became more intimate than a declaration. Enzo had spent his adult life arranging rooms so nobody could surprise him, yet he now allowed Maeve to choose the distance between them. She understood the fantasy of being the one woman a feared man obeyed, but obedience alone did not interest her. What moved her was that he kept his power and still made space for hers. When he left that night, he paused at the bakery door. "The harbor breakfast is Saturday," he said. "I know. If I attend, there will be people. That is usually how community breakfasts work. There may be cameras." Maeve set a fresh rosemary heel on the counter, not wrapped, simply available. "Then decide before Saturday what belongs to them and what stays yours." Enzo picked up the bread. "And if they do not respect the difference?" "They meet the night baker." He looked at her for a long moment, then carried the bread out through the front door without hiding it. At the harbor breakfast on Saturday, 300 people arrived before 7. The bakery's front room filled with folding tables, paper cups, volunteers, dockworkers, nurses, pensioners, parents, teenagers, and men in expensive coats pretending they had come only for coffee. The church choir occupied 2 tables and sang badly between bites. Owen ran the espresso machine with the pride of a man finally recognized by his beloved. Maeve wore a dark green work dress under a flower-striped apron. Her hair was pinned high, though strands had already escaped around her face. She moved between the ovens and the front room, tracking trays, temperatures, and the changing shape of the crowd. At 7:10, 2 black SUVs stopped outside. Conversation lowered. Enzo entered with Dario and 2 guards. He wore a charcoal suit instead of black, though the long coat, signet ring, and silent shift of bodies around him made his identity unmistakable. Celeste moved toward him with the photographer. Maeve saw the camera before Enzo did. "Wide shots only," she told Celeste. "We agreed." "You agreed after being told. Please do not create a scene. Then do not schedule one." Enzo greeted Mrs. Donnelly, who told him the cinnamon buns were shrinking. He promised to investigate. Maeve heard him say it and nearly dropped a tray. The sponsor table stood near the center of the room. Maeve had changed its layout. No head chair. No spotlight. No silver plate. Every place held the same cream dish, the same coffee cup, and a rosemary roll on brown paper. Enzo looked at the table. Then he looked at Maeve. She lifted one shoulder. He sat. Dario took the table behind him, facing the room. The guards remained by the doors. Celeste sat to Enzo's right. A union representative and 2 neighborhood organizers joined them. For 5 minutes, the event remained ordinary. People ate. Nobody watched Enzo. Maeve returned to the kitchen and removed another tray from the oven. Then Owen appeared at her shoulder. "There are cameras at the sponsor table." Maeve looked through the service opening. The original photographer had remained near the wall, obeying the wide-shot rule. 2 others had entered with a local business reporter. One crouched near the sponsor table. The other held a long lens aimed directly at Enzo's plate. Celeste was speaking to the reporter. Enzo had not touched the roll. His right hand pressed against his thigh beneath the table. His jaw had locked. The room had begun to notice. Maeve put down the tray. She picked up a large wicker bread basket filled with rosemary rolls and walked into the front room. The photographer raised his camera. Maeve placed the basket directly between the lens and Enzo's plate. "Move," the photographer said. "No. You are blocking the shot." "Correct." Celeste stood. "Maeve." Enzo looked up. For 1 second, Maeve saw 13-year-old Enzo at a table owned by his father, surrounded by people waiting for his throat to obey. Then she saw the man he had become. Powerful. Dangerous. Still deserving of a choice. Maeve lifted Enzo's plate from the table. The room went silent. One guard stepped forward. Enzo raised his hand. The guard stopped. "Put that back," Celeste whispered. "No. This is a sponsored event. It is a community breakfast. Mr. Marcelli is the principal donor. Then he can donate without being used as the menu." The business reporter lowered her microphone slightly. Celeste's face hardened. "You have no authority to remove his plate." Maeve turned to Enzo. "Do you want it back?" Every person in the room waited. Maeve hated them for waiting, then recognized she had joined them. She looked away first. Enzo looked at the open space where the plate had been. He looked at the bread basket blocking the camera. Then he looked at Celeste. "No," he said. Celeste went pale. Enzo stood. The photographer retreated half a step. "Mr. Marcelli," the reporter began, "can you comment on concerns about your health?" "No. Your absence from public dinners has raised questions about leadership." "Then ask questions about leadership. People want reassurance. They are not entitled to my mouth." The sentence traveled across the bakery. Maeve felt it enter every quiet space. Enzo removed the rosemary roll from the brown paper and held it in one hand. He did not eat it. "This event exists so people can have breakfast without proving they deserve it," he said. "If you came to photograph hunger, leave. If you came to photograph me swallowing, leave. If you came to eat, put the camera away and sit down." Nobody moved at first. Then Mrs. Donnelly raised her coffee. "The buns are still small," she said, "but he is right." Laughter broke the room's tension. The business reporter lowered her microphone. The long-lens photographer looked toward Celeste. She gave him a small helpless gesture. Maeve pointed toward the front door. "Cameras away or outside." The photographer left. The reporter remained, put her phone face down, and sat at the end of a table beside 2 dock workers. The original event photographer lowered his camera and picked up a roll. Celeste stayed standing. "Do you understand what you have done?" she asked Maeve. "Protected breakfast. You embarrassed the foundation." Enzo turned toward her. "No," he said. "She prevented the foundation from embarrassing me." Celeste swallowed. "You approved public attendance." "I did. We needed a photograph that showed stability. Then photograph the room after everyone has eaten. That is not the image donors expect. Find better donors." His voice remained quiet, but the power in it changed the air around Celeste. Maeve had seen men use volume because they had nothing else. Enzo did not need it. Celeste gathered her schedule. "I will step outside." "You will sit," Enzo said. Maeve looked at him. He caught himself. The old command remained in the room between them. Enzo breathed once. "Would you prefer to sit and eat," he corrected, "or leave for the morning?" Celeste stared at him. Maeve did not rescue either of them from the pause. "I will leave," Celeste said. "All right." She walked out with one assistant. The other stayed, took off her foundation badge, and joined the church choir's table. Enzo looked at Maeve. "My plate," he asked. "Do you want the same one?" "No." "What do you want?" He glanced around the crowded room. "The back table." "Alone?" His gaze returned to her. "With company, if she has time." Maeve's pulse shifted. She carried his plate to the kitchen, put it beside the sink, and reached for a clean cream dish. On it she placed half a rosemary bread heel. Then she handed the other half to Owen. "Cover the ovens for 10 minutes." Owen accepted the bread. "Is this a promotion?" "It is a threat." "Understood." Maeve led Enzo into the back kitchen. Dario positioned himself at the frosted door. He left it open 1.5 inches without being told. Maeve and Enzo sat at the wooden table. The breakfast noise reached them through the wall, softened into cups, chairs, conversation, and laughter. Nobody could see his plate. Enzo turned the bread in his hand. "You took it before I asked," he said. Maeve's stomach tightened. "I did. You believed I wanted it removed. I saw your hand. You assumed." Yes. She could have defended herself. She could have said the camera was a clear violation, that he had frozen, that every second mattered. Instead, she placed her half of the bread down. "I am sorry." Enzo watched her. "I should have blocked the camera and asked what you wanted before taking the plate. You were protecting me. That does not make the choice mine." The truth cost her something. That was how she knew it was the right one. Enzo looked at the bread basket visible through the service opening. "I did want it removed," he said. "I know now. You would apologize even when the result was correct. Results are not permission." His eyes came back to her. "You keep returning my own lessons to me. They were never yours." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Enzo tore off a bite. "Stay," he said. Maeve lifted one eyebrow. He closed his eyes briefly. "Would you stay?" "Yes." He ate. The first bite went down slowly. The second went down easier. By the fourth, Maeve picked up her half and ate with him. That afternoon, after the volunteers left and the floors had been swept, Enzo helped stack folding chairs. Nobody asked him to. At first, every guard in the room looked as if chair stacking might be a coded threat. Dario solved the problem by picking up 2 chairs himself. The others followed. Maeve worked beside Enzo near the front window. "You do not have to do this," she said. "That phrase sounds different when you say it." "Because I mean it." "Then I choose to." He stacked another chair. His expensive suit collected a line of flour from the seat. Maeve reached toward it, then stopped. "May I?" she asked. Enzo looked down at the flour, then at her hand. "Yes." She brushed the mark from his sleeve. Her fingers lingered for 1 second longer than necessary. His breathing changed. Maeve withdrew. "Celeste will resign," he said. "Did you fire her?" "No." "Good. You expected me to." "I expected you to remove the problem so quickly that nobody learned anything." She designed a private bodily moment for publicity. "Yes. That is not a minor mistake." "No. But if she leaves because you frightened her, the next person will hide the schedule better." Enzo placed 1 chair on the stack. "What do you suggest?" "You ask whether she understands what she did. Then you decide whether she can work without doing it again. You are advising me on personnel. I am telling you why bakeries label hot trays instead of firing everyone who gets burned. People are not trays. That is exactly my point." Enzo studied her with the focused attention he usually reserved for doors, exits, and threats. "Come to dinner with me," he said. Maeve's hand tightened on the chair. That was an order. It was phrased badly. "Very." He set the chair down. "Maeve Carver, would you have dinner with me?" "Where?" "Anywhere you choose." "Who watches?" "Nobody you do not invite." "Who orders?" "You may." "That is not what I meant." The almost smile appeared. "I know." Maeve looked around the bakery. Owen was counting cash. Dario carried the last stack toward the wall. Sunlight warmed the empty display case. "Breakfast," she said. Enzo waited. "Not dinner." "Breakfast next Thursday, after the morning rush. Here." "That sounds like what we already do. No guards inside. No crisis. No reason for you to be hungry enough to need me." Understanding settled across his face. "A date," he said. "If you arrive as a customer." "I have never been only a customer." "That sounds like a personal failure." "Thursday," he said. "Ask." His gaze warmed. "Would you have breakfast with me next Thursday?" "Yes." The word changed him more visibly than Maeve expected. He did not smile broadly. Enzo Marcelli did very little broadly. But tension left his mouth and shoulders as if a room inside him had opened 1 window. Thursday arrived without rain, cameras, doctors, or silver plates. At 10:15, the morning rush ended. Maeve changed her apron, washed flour from her arms, and told Owen he was in charge for 1 hour. "Should I call if the espresso machine becomes emotional?" he asked. "Give it space." Enzo arrived at 10:20. 1 black SUV stopped across the street. Dario remained inside it, visible through the windshield and pointedly reading a newspaper. Enzo entered alone. He wore a charcoal suit and no overcoat. His gloves were folded in one hand rather than worn. He carried no flowers, no black card, no gift box, and no document offering to purchase half the block. Maeve appreciated every absence. "Are you open?" he asked. "Yes." "Mais comment? You are improving the sequence." He took the table by the window, not the hidden back table. Maeve brought 2 plain plates, butter, coffee, and a fresh rosemary loaf. She sat across from him and waited. Enzo broke the heel from the loaf. He divided it carefully. This time the halves were equal. "Better measurement," Maeve said. "Deliberate equality. Still foundation language." "I am trying." They ate. Customers came and went. Nobody recognized the moment as a test, which meant it was not one. An old man bought a rye loaf. A college student asked whether the muffins were vegan. Mrs. Donnelly entered, saw Enzo, and told him the cinnamon buns were larger today. "I investigated," he said. Maeve kicked him gently beneath the table. He looked surprised, then pleased. By the end of breakfast, Enzo had eaten the entire half-heel, 2 spoonfuls of eggs, and 1 piece of apple. Maeve noticed because she was human. She said nothing because she had learned. He noticed her not noticing. "You are very disciplined," he said. "I am thinking about 17 other things." "Name one." Whether Owen remembered to order poppy seeds. He did not. "How do you know?" Dario checked. Maeve stared at him. "Your security chief is monitoring my seed inventory? He likes useful tasks." Across the street, Dario turned one page of the newspaper. Maeve laughed. Enzo watched her with the same quiet hunger he had brought to the first bread heel, though this hunger did not tighten his throat. "May I kiss you?" he asked. The bakery remained ordinary around them. That mattered. No crisis pushed them together. No threat made the answer urgent. No crowd waited for Maeve to reward him for behaving like a man instead of a weapon. She looked at his bare hands resting on the table. "Not here," she said. He accepted it immediately. "All right. Walk me to the alley." He stood. Maeve told Owen she would be back in 5 minutes. Owen looked at Enzo, looked at Maeve, and discovered a sudden need to polish the espresso machine. The alley behind Bell and Briar smelled of coffee grounds, warm brick, rosemary, and the sea carried faintly from the harbor. Morning light fell between the buildings. The black SUV remained visible at the far end, but Dario did not leave it. Maeve faced Enzo near the flower delivery door. "Ask again." His expression changed. "May I kiss you, Maeve?" "Yes." He lifted one hand, then stopped beside her face. "May I touch you here?" Maeve placed his palm against her cheek. Then she kissed him. Enzo remained still for the first heartbeat, perhaps because every lesson he had learned in her bakery told him not to turn permission into possession. When Maeve moved closer, his other hand settled lightly at her waist. The kiss was not soft because neither of them was. It was careful, warm, and hungry without becoming a demand. Maeve tasted coffee and rosemary. Enzo breathed her name against her mouth as though he had been practicing how not to make it an order. She drew back first. He let her. 5 minutes, she said. "We used to." "You are timing now?" "Only what belongs to both of us." Maeve touched the scar over his eyebrow. Dangerous answer. "You prefer inconvenient." "I do." 3 months later, the harbor breakfast photographs were published. There was no image of Enzo taking a bite. The newspaper chose a wide shot of the bakery instead. Nurses, dockworkers, church volunteers, families, guards, and foundation staff sat at ordinary tables under warm lights. Near the center, a large wicker bread basket blocked part of the sponsor table. Maeve stood behind it with one hand on a plate and her face turned toward Enzo. He was looking at her. Not at the food. Not at the cameras. At her. Celeste kept her position at the foundation after a month away from public events and several very uncomfortable conversations. The following campaign included a written consent line for every photographed meal, medical visit, and family event. Maeve did not call that redemption. She called it a corrected procedure, which was less romantic and more useful. Dario became a regular customer. He always ordered black coffee and 1 rosemary heel. He claimed the heel was for Enzo, but Maeve once saw him eat it in the SUV while reading the paper. Owen finally accepted that the espresso machine did not love him. Mrs. Donnelly never accepted the true size of the cinnamon buns. Enzo continued coming after closing, though not always to eat. Sometimes he sat at the work table while Maeve shaped rolls. Sometimes he wiped flour because she handed him a towel. Sometimes he talked about his father, and sometimes he chose not to. He did not become easy. Maeve did not want easy. Easy could be careless. Easy could call control protection and appetite evidence. Enzo remained a man who commanded guards, ended negotiations with one sentence, and made dishonest people reconsider entire careers. The neighborhood still lowered its voice when his black cars appeared. But inside Bell and Briar, he asked. He asked whether Maeve wanted company. He asked whether the pendant light was too bright. He asked before moving the chair that gave Dario a better view of the door. He asked before touching her hand, her face, her waist, and the old oven burn on her wrist. He did not ask whether she had counted his bites. He knew she had not. One winter morning, snow closed the harbor roads and cut power to half the block. Bell and Briar's gas ovens still worked, so Maeve opened the bakery and fed anyone who came in cold. Enzo arrived before sunrise with blankets, flashlights, and 3 guards carrying crates of milk. He did not put the Marcelli name on anything. He placed the supplies where Maeve pointed and asked what else she needed. At 9, when the bakery filled with wet coats and tired people, Maeve found him in the back kitchen with a rosemary heel in his hand. He was not eating. Through the service opening, several strangers could see him. Maeve approached. "Do you want the back table?" Enzo looked toward the crowded room. A bus driver laughed near the window. 2 nurses shared eggs. Mrs. Donnelly told a family that the buns had once been larger. Dario stood by the door pretending not to listen. Enzo looked at the bread. "No," he said. "Do you want company?" "Yes." Maeve broke off the other half. They stood beside the flour bin and ate while the bakery moved around them. Nobody stopped to watch. Nobody understood that the feared mafia boss was doing something that had once been impossible. That was why it became possible. Enzo finished first. He brushed crumbs from his palm and looked at Maeve. "Dinner tonight?" he asked. "Here? Wherever you choose." "Who watches?" "Only the woman who complains about the portions." Mrs. Donnelly called from the front room, "I heard that." Maeve smiled. "Dinner," she agreed. Enzo bent toward her, then waited. She kissed him before he had to ask again. The rosemary bread heel was gone between them, leaving only crumbs on the wooden table and the scent of something warm that had been broken open rather than taken. If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments which moment mattered most. Was it Maeve clearing the room, Enzo asking whether she wanted company, or the morning he ate while the whole bakery carried on?